Okay, admitted. Yeah, so again, everyone, I'm the CEO at Ycenter, and we are a global learning, innovation, and design organization. We have an office headquartered in Philadelphia. I'm joining from New York this afternoon, and I know it's late evening, night almost to people in Kenya, and Kizito is in German time zone, so evening almost there. Really excited to be here. At Y Center, we have now worked with 100 plus universities and organizations across 11 countries, maybe even more. I don't know. I stopped counting after 10. And across 5 continents. We have worked in all the domains from healthcare, agriculture, higher education, to providing government advisory work, social innovation, public transportation, fashion, solar, edtech, you name it. And we might have done some kind of a work directly or indirectly through our global community. We worked with some amazing institutions, everything from Wharton Business School to US Department of Commerce to Stanford to Google for Education, pharmaceutical company like Abbott, Cornell University. So it's been a really exciting journey the last few years, having worked with some amazing organizations. I have actually personally focused a lot on creating programs that focus on using technology to solve humanitarian problems around the world. By training, I'm a biomedical engineer. Very much like Sarah, my bachelor's is in electrical and instrumentation engineering from Mumbai University, and I did my master's here in US in biomedical. I had a corporate job. I quit it first day. So I have corporate job experience of 8 hours. And then I started my company, which you guys see now, Y Center, where we are creating amazing opportunities and building a community, one community, a global community of problem solvers to create amazing solutions. Let's see. By the way, when Kizito was talking, I put in this slide only dedicated to Kizito, and I wanted to reinstate. Someone sent me this, life as an entrepreneur. He's right. It's not for everyone. Someone sent me, my friend sent me this. Hey, I saw this good picture. Do you think this happens to you? Anytime someone sees a funny entrepreneurship picture or comic, they send it to me. So he sent me this. He said, "Is your life like this? You're excited, then you think you're it's messed up, then you think you are wrong, you give up, but then you again think it's great. Does it happen to you?" And I said, it's kind of true. And it says day in the life of an entrepreneur. Sometimes all of this happens just in 3 hours in the morning. So, I can wake up feeling, yay, amazing. I'm the CEO of Y Center. And then after 1 hour, I get an email that one of our projects got canceled. It feels really bad. So, you go through that ups and downs. It's a huge roller coaster ride. But what keeps you going is not your certificates and your degrees, but your will and your passion to actually create a change. And that's why I'm privileged to be a part of this community today and share some of this work with you. So what do we really do exactly? So Y Center provides, our model is based on design thinking framework and using experiential learning methodology. Those two things are most important for us. Now, experiential learning means all the programs that we create at Y Center are very hands-on. They're project-based learning. You don't learn something just for academic purposes or just to get a fancy thing put on your CV or resume. You do it because you can actually create a project and make some meaningful change in your community, in your country, globally, anywhere in the world. And we use design thinking framework, which means that if you, as you can see in the picture, we go through the cycle of empathizing with the person who's facing the problem or the community who's facing the problem. We do not focus on the problem, we focus on the people who face the problem. We then go on to define the problem. There's a funny joke that a lot of people create solutions first, and then they go out in the world and they put a advertisement saying, "Hey, I have a solution. Can you come with your problems? Because I don't know what your problem is." And we avoid doing that. Most people jump upon creating solution. People say, "I want to make the next billion dollar mobile application or the next amazing Facebook or Wikipedia and all of those things." When I ask them, "Why do you want to do that?" Because they say, "I have amazing tech skills, I can code." That cannot be the reason to make an app or a website. You make an app or a website or anything because there is a problem and it has to be solved. So design thinking allows us to put ourselves in the shoes of people who face the problem. We focus on working with universities and facilitators. So we do train the trainer model using design thinking. Last year when I was in Kenya, I had the opportunity to train few facilitators who can then go out in different counties in Kenya, Kangema County, where I visited, courtesy Kirangai. They can go out to their own counties and they can go and teach their community about design thinking. We want to move the needle from just job seeking to job creation. when there are not enough jobs, young people really get scared. And yes, it's not a great time currently with the COVID pandemic to be in for jobs. But it is actually the best time to create a job, because there is anyway no job. How bad can it get, So I'm trying to look at the positive side, and using our model, we really employ the entrepreneurial mindset in our student community. We also focus on multi-stakeholder capacity development. What that means is, we work with someone like Kirangai, who would allow us to connect with someone like Kizito, who is working on data sets, working with governments. So we work with companies like that. We also work with governments. We work with farmer co-ops at a grassroots level, and we bring all of them together on the same table so they can coherently create something that impacts the field of agriculture. So when you say something impacts the field of agriculture, you're really talking about it impacting the lives of people who depend on agriculture, either as an income level or, I think everyone, I mean, not I think, we know for a matter of fact, the whole world depends on agriculture. So we like to believe that we work with the whole world. It's quite ambitious, but we really try to work with as many people as we can. So moving on to the next one. So what is design thinking really? I show this simple graphic that we made. So, a lot of people talk about making people want things. I feel this is a very marketing driven model where you make people believe that they want something, but they might not. That might not be a problem. And then there's another statement, making things people want. I just jumbled the chronology of the words from want and people, and it changes the entire meaning. So moving from making people want things to making things that people actually want, it completely changes your perspective as a problem solver. And we really encourage everyone to start introspecting at what are the actual wants, and more importantly, what are the actual needs of people, and focusing on those people, those demographics first. Let's say there are 10 people and all of them need access to water. If two of them are belonging to the extreme high society, economically well being community, then their need might be getting expensive bottled water. And if you take the same need of getting access to water to the lowest community, low income neighborhood, their need might be very simple. I just need some kind of water. I don't care how good or bad it is, which is not a great perspective. But trust me, people in the world, more than, I mean, almost 50% of the world still doesn't have access to fresh water. And that is really insane. That drives me nuts. So if you really look at the need and want of water, even within that, you want to focus on the people, because that will allow you to understand and empathize with their local situation. So that is really what human-centered is about. So one of the ways we do that, there are many ways, but one strong way that Ycenter embraces is framing a problem statement. We tell people more often than not, that 80% of problem solving is problem. Only 20% is solving. If you get your problem right, your solution will stay on for many years. There are many companies today that, start very well, but they don't exist after 5 years because the problem doesn't exist anymore, or they weren't really solving the right problem. They were just catering to the superficial needs of people. So we have created this methodology within design thinking called cause based, action oriented, specific or a systemic problem, and empathy based. If you are a problem solver, if you are an entrepreneur, or even if you are just going to work in some company, and if you are given a job to do, we really recommend people to first focusing on a problem statement. That would really allow you to have a much accelerated career growth path. For example, let's say you're not an entrepreneur, you're working in a large company and you're asked to do a job. Now most people will rush to doing that job quickly and give it to their boss, and maybe that was asked of you. But if you are not under any time deadline, and you have the room to do something new, I would really recommend you to first take a step back and think about, why am I doing this? What's the problem that I'm asked to solve? That would really help you differentiate among all your colleagues. So that's one of the core of design thinking philosophy, of focusing on the problems and defining the problem really, really well. One of the techniques that we use for actually designing the solution is designing for extremes. And there is a graph here and all of that. Don't worry about this. I can give access to the slides later on. But the focus is on, when you are creating a solution, if you create it for some of the extreme users, we like to believe that the cool part is that you will actually take care of everyone in the between. So if I try to make access to water, or if I'm a water entrepreneur, if I'm an energy entrepreneur, if I'm going to try to cater to the energy needs of someone who'd say, I don't want solar, If I can convince them to go solar from using fossil fuel, then I know that people who are already convinced will definitely buy my product. So I try to focus on the extreme group. Now here is a really cool example of that. So we know telephones, and of course we know who invented it. So Graham Bell, I mean, you would be shocked to know that one of his inventions, landmark inventions of phone, was actually done from the perspective of designing for an extreme user. I mean, I couldn't verify if his wife and mother both were deaf, but I know one of them was deaf, and he was trying to find a way to communicate to his deaf wife or his deaf mother. I think it was most likely wife, but my team believes that it's both. So we just have this slide right here. But the point is, he was trying to solve a problem. And today we use phones. I mean, for example, if he wouldn't have done phone, we wouldn't have smartphones, we wouldn't have different kinds of communication. I mean, today I believe even the whole fact I'm sitting on Zoom and talking to all of you in a different part of the world, the basis of that invention goes back to cell phone, goes back to telephone, a simple telephone, the ability to communicate with someone who is not in the same physical location as I am. So, when you design for the extreme, you can also use it for every other case scenario. And that is something I really propagate a lot through design thinking, that focus on the most extreme users and you'll be able to cater to a lot of other needs. So, it's a very quick presentation. I don't want to bore all of you with too many slides and too much talk. I want to see if you have any questions for me, but these are the 4 golden rules that, we have come out with for solving a problem. First, ask yourself, are you solving the right problem? Do the people for whom you're solving this problem, do they know that it's a real problem? Sometimes you have it in your head, I think it's a big problem. But when you go out and they say, we don't have a problem, why did you make that assumption? So do you know that your people also have a problem? So you have to verify that, validate it. Third, are people willing to solve the problem? Very important. Even if people know, sometimes they don't do anything about it. They're like, it's fine. We will live the way it is. We don't want to solve this. And then finally, are people willing to pay for getting this problem solved? So if you go in that order, and if you're able to say yes, yes, yes to everything, I think you have created a pathway to create an amazing solution. So anyway, this was my very quick presentation on design thinking. Ideally, I teach this from anywhere from 8 hours of workshop to 1 year of entire semester-wide workshop. And I did all of that in 10 minutes. But I'm really happy to be here. And if you guys have any questions for me, please ask here. Or I also recommend all of you to look more into design thinking, human-centered design. And if you wish to connect with me, here's my name, and maybe Kiranga can share, and you can look me up on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter. I'm very old for Snapchat, so I'm not there, but feel free to connect with me anywhere that you wish to, and reach out to me if I can help you with your projects or with your career in any way. Thank you so much. And Kirangai and Felix, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dhairya. And this is definitely great. There is you have an opportunity on Zoom to raise up your hand and say what it is, or give a reaction of the nature that you want. You can even clap. You can actually give a clap. So if you give a clap like I have done on mine, you are showing that yes, the guy has done a good job. So let's give him a clap. Those who feel that he ought to be given a clap. At the reactions, there is something called reactions at the bottom.
I'm getting a lot of reactions, I can see.
Yeah, and yes, he is there. He can see that we are excited that he actually came here and was with us. But we also had Kizito, and we have Salah, and they have been a blessing to us. And what I would like us now to do is we are getting some interesting people talking to us from very diverse locations. I want to actually acknowledge Bashmir Shadrach of Commonwealth of Learning is with us. Shadrach, we want you to greet us. Shadrach.
Thank you, Kirangai. Thank you, everyone. I'm really pleased that Felix and you have chosen to do this webinar for the Call Udemy P4CDA students, CDA students. And I'm also happy to see Dhairya for the first time online. We have interacted in the past, but thank you, Dhairya, for such a quick snapshot of your presentation on design thinking. And it's wonderful, Kiringai, for and a wonderful gesture of yours to have coordinated this so that the graduates of Call Udemy, P4CDA learners would be able to gain from any of these interventions. As Dhairya mentioned, it's not enough to actually gain certification, but also it's more important for each one to gain skills. And probably this is one of the attempts of your kind to do that. Thank you so much for having me also in this meeting.
You're most welcome. For the sake of those who are here, the person who actually gave me the opportunity that you are getting from P4CDA was Dr. Shadrach. Dr. Shadrach actually gave me a scholarship similar to what you are receiving, and he then welcomed me to work with him. And you can see that the baton is being passed to somebody else by myself passing to you. And I believe very strongly that it is your responsibility as we go to actually pass the baton to another person. But you must, as Dhairya says it, you must first of all benefit from whatever it is that you are engaging with by identifying that design thinking 5 principles that he had presented to us. So in this forum, we actually now want to open it. I could not just pass without giving, when I noticed that Shadrach is here, I had to actually stop everything. But the idea now was to tell you, the floor is all ours. Let us clarify things, issues that you may have had that you want to clarify. If there is somebody you want to know how you collaborate with, these people will be with us and we will keep inviting them with different challenges based on what you present. What we are looking forward is you people now becoming not just learners of the Commonwealth of Learning and P4CDA. It is becoming our champions, becoming our partners, becoming the persons who will tell us that there is a group in my area that has this need and I can't deliver the training. Can you come and support us to train them? And then if I am not around, I have already demonstrated that we can actually summon Dhairya. I called him when he woke up this morning and told him at 1 o'clock you are needed to actually talk to some people who are doing our program. And I think you are the right person to talk on design thinking for them to actually simplify it in a way that they can conceptualize much easier. Then I called Kizito. Kizito was in a forum with me this morning, and I told him, you must be there in the evening. And incidentally, Kizito is actually one of the graduates of the Udemy program. He just said, yeah, I have found a course I can take. And that was good. He actually took it. And we're excited that, yes, other than that, he is using the skills to actually also further the development of his technologies that he is doing. He has developed the first third-word data cube for a country, for Kenya, courtesy of the work that we are doing together. And I'm excited about that. Sometimes you don't see me as much as you should. And the reason for that is because I am working with the people who are making some other changes in other places. And Kizito is one of them. So the 3 people that I have mentioned are also partners of the Global Open Data for Agriculture and Nutrition that I work for. And I therefore call them and they call me so that we work together to solve problems that people are facing in diverse locations of this continent, of the world. So can I now stop talking and give you the privilege to raise your hand and ask the question to whoever of the presenters that we have had this evening to actually answer you. Now, I am going to mute myself and remove myself from visibility. Thank you. Unmute yourself and ask the questions. Anybody with a question?
You can also text it. Text a question.
Felix.
Yes, I'm here.
Jason here.
Yes, yes.
The question is on the gentleman who has talked on system thinking. And he has talked about the people knowing about the problem you are trying to solve. Are there instances where you will have people who do not even know that they have a problem, and therefore it is your job to first demonstrate to them that they have a problem? How do you deal with situations where people may not even be aware that they have a problem, but it is there, you can see it, and if they are made aware, they can benefit? How do you deal with that dynamic?
Jason, right?
Yep.
Listen, thank you so much for the question. So first, I think there's almost two parts. The first part I feel is that I'm I'm not saying that people know the problem. In fact, most likely they will not know the problem. So I'm sharing again that the second question that you have to ask is, do people know if there is a problem? And the answer is no, which most likely in many cases is no. Your job as a problem solver is to first to identify that problem and empathize with your population to show them that there is a problem that needs to be solved. So I can give an example about my time working in a community in Mozambique. As a biomedical engineer, I spent almost a year living in Mozambique in a community where no one even speaks English. So it was quite challenging for me as well to communicate. But then I figured out, when I first went there for 6 months, I took a bunch of medical equipment from America and from Germany that was donated by big hospitals with me on the plane and donated it to them. But then I realized that they didn't ask for that. So we realized, okay, wait, they don't realize that there is a problem and they need some of this medical equipment. But then we further found out that they don't know how to use any of this medical equipment. And second, most of this equipment was old and broken and they don't know how to fix it. So there are thousands of dollars of medical equipment lying in the side. So first we had to acknowledge that there was a problem and we had to show them that if you fix this, you can achieve some of the things that you have a problem in your hospital. When they were able to see that, they were with us. And in fact, I removed those slides because I had very little time. But then I started creating a training program on how to fix medical equipment. So I was not really actually fixing the problem of medical equipment. I was fixing a much larger problem that this hospital had way too many patients. It was the only hospital in the area of 60 kilometers, the biggest hospital. People were traveling from area, but it only had like less than 10 doctors. If they used this medical equipment, they would be actually able to see more patients. So they didn't know this problem. So once we fixed a very basic problem that they were able to identify, and I think you use the word systems thinking, the whole systemic issue of healthcare, the less doctor to patient ratio, that started to get solved. They didn't see any of that. They were able to see and comprehend a much more immediate problem. So you have to empathize. That's why design thinking is amazing. Before you even get to systems thinking, design thinking allows you to empathize with your population. And I believe that, and this is an example that I didn't see firsthand, but I've heard of it in many coastal communities across African countries where people had problem of malaria. Same in Mozambique, malaria is a huge problem. They were getting donated mosquito nets from around the world, and they were using this mosquito net to do fishing because they were hungry. A lot of these communities. So here is an interesting issue. You thought that the problem in your head is you're trying to solve someone's problem of not having them get malaria and infected by malaria, but they thought the problem was hunger. So there was a huge problem between hunger and healthcare issue, and I like to believe if you use design thinking and you try to see the life in a day of someone who can't get, a single meal in the entire day, obviously they will think about food first and not worry about getting bitten by mosquito and getting malaria. So now what it allows you to do as design thinking, it allows you to empathize and look at their life, not as a problem, but just as life in general. Because most people go there thinking, I have to find the problem, I have to solve this. Nobody asked you to come there. You want to solve it. They didn't call you on the phone, hey, please come and solve my problem. Nobody asked me to go to Mozambique and solve the problems. I learned about it online and I decided I'm going to go there and be there. So I think design thinking allows to have that empathy in place and work with your community as you together discover the problem. I'm not claiming that you as a design thinker or as a problem solver should know more than your population. You may have more skills and more abilities to solve the problem, but you might be equally, maybe even more ignorant about these problems, because culture and all of that plays a big role in understanding how these problems exist in this community. And most likely, if problem solvers are from a different country or from a different speaking population, they might not even understand people's emotions. So you have to first immerse yourself in that community. And I think that is the first step to be able to come together on the same page when it comes to understanding problem. I hope that answers some of your question, Jason. Though it was a very loaded question, but I hope it helps.
It does. It does.
And thank you, Jason, for that. There are questions that have been posted. Dhairya.
You want me to take them?
I want you to take them, but most important, I want to remind our learners, design thinking is one of the Udemy courses that is available for you and is made available to you. And this is something that you can also go and probe further in the event that you don't get everything that you wanted to be addressed by Dhairya. But much as we actually will be having him, we will not be having him to address the same matter. So ask the questions that you have now so that he can respond to them. There were some 2 more questions that had
posted. I can see the question. I'll take. So here's a question from Johnston Muruka. So the question he asked, and I'm repeating for everyone, I would like to thank for the opportunity during the identification process of the problem. Do you have to bring them as stakeholders in the design of the service or product? So I think the question is that should you bring your stakeholders who face the problem also in designing the solution? The short answer is yes. What we call is co-creation. Now that is really helpful because again, as a problem solver, I take a more empathetic, a servant leadership role, if I may. If you guys know what that term is, where you are a leader, but you are really serving your people. You are not taking a higher position. You are on the same vulnerable position as everyone else. And by getting into the act of co-creation, you are allowing everyone, there's no expert, by the way, understand this, especially when you're solving community problems. No one can take a position of expertise. Everyone goes with the aspect of we want to solve this together, not I want to solve this. So I tell people that you have to move from the philosophy of I'm going to create a solution for the people to creating a solution with the people. So how do you do that? They may not have coding skills or hardware skills or fabrication skills, digital fabrication, 3D printing, but they know their people really well. So by bringing them early in the process of designing solution, they can actually tell you where you are making mistake much earlier, rather than you having spent thousands of dollars and making something just to find out that no one wants it, no one needs it. I'll give an example, Johnston. So we made a solar powered cell phone charger that sits on a can of Coca-Cola. It was really amazing. We won awards. I wrote about it on Huffington Post. So if you Google "Go Solar in Africa" and you put my name, you'll find that article online. But breaking news, that product failed. No one wanted to use that product, even though initially we had some users. So the reason was that the community where we were putting the product, they already had a product from China, which was, I think, almost 50 cents or $1 cheaper than what we were offering. Now we think in our head, $1 means nothing. But when I convert that $1 into, let's say, shillings, that's 100 shillings, or in Indian rupees, that's Indian 80 rupees, or meticals in Mozambique, that was 35 and now 70 meticals. That's a gap. And when someone who is working, on day-to-day wages, they're going to save that money. So while I thought I made a great product, I was not able to close the economic gap. But if I had someone from that community in our design process, they would have told me how to price the product. So there are many aspects I think you can benefit from bringing someone for your co-creation. They will not actually design it, but they will give you advice to not make the mistakes. You'll still make some mistakes, but make less expensive mistakes, if I may. So I hope that answers Johnston. Dominic has a question. Can we use research to inform decisions? That is, using surveys to get a data from people so as to inform some decisions and to aid in coming up with a pilot prototype. I believe that data can also tailor some aspects. So Dominic, excellent question. In design thinking, we like to use something called as ethnographic research. So we do not directly recommend you to conduct a traditional survey where you send out questions and people give you answers. I'll tell you why not. Because when you send out surveys, you already have decided the questions in your mind and you're kind of validating your assumptions, which is okay. Nothing wrong with that. I think data is very powerful. Kizito can talk more about that after I finish here. Data is very helpful. It can, more logical, scientific way, and you need data, to make those decisions, big decisions. But when I'm talking about it at micro level, trying to understand people, more helpful than survey is actually interviewing people and getting some real stories out of them. So Stanford D School and maybe Coursera, I think someone talked about Coursera. I wouldn't know what courses are offered online, but I would recommend that the Udemy's design thinking course, as Kirangai mentioned, may also have some interview guides. But if you just Google Stanford D School user interview guide, it's available for free. So you can learn from that how to create a questionnaire and ask questions to your users. I would recommend do not take a traditional survey. And I would quote Henry Ford, who put it really nice. He said, if I asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses, not cars. So, that just tells you that surveys are very biased. But yeah, maybe Kizito wants to come in and shed some light on the power of data in helping understand how to design solutions.
Yes, thanks, Dhairya. I think for us, of course, we are talking about data, and we think data is basically at the epicenter of how decisions are being made, because without data, you're basically using a blind horse to go to the destination where you want to be. So data has a lot of value, but the main point is, are you collecting the right data? So having a survey that is full of 100 questions that you're going to ask your potential user of your service might not really give you the answers that you're looking for, as much as you have all these questions. So it's really about having the right questions, asking the right questions, or interacting in the right way. You realize that some answers to the questions you're asking might not really come out through the response to a question, rather through the interaction with your user. And that is now where empathy really comes in, that you really try as much as possible to see how you're interacting with your user. And sometimes you read in between the lines, because just to give a short story on how we innovated around our product in the market right now. Back in 2017, April, we were working in some parts of Kuria and Migori in southern Kenya, and we were talking to farmers about them being interested in receiving agro-weather advisory via SMS, and if they were willing to pay for it. And at that moment, many farmers would say yes. They say, yes, I really, really want weather information. And do you see climate change is a problem? And they say, yes, climate change, even if they did not know what climate change was meant for them at that point. But they also had an intention. At that point, we also realized that some were already hoping that by giving us the answers that we wanted to hear, that would actually benefit them by either being given something at the end of that survey. So they tell you what you want to hear because they expect you to react in a particular way. So if we would have left with the impression that we have asked our potential users and they have all said yes, they're very interested in our service, they are all willing to pay, then we would actually not be able to get to the point where we really criticize ourselves and find out what is the right thing that we want. So it helps you to use data. You always have to bring the data dimension into your thinking, because without the data, you are almost lost. But data is not everything. It is how you actually analyze that data, what insights and what knowledge you generate out of that data. So collecting the answers should help you then be able to make an analysis and make a final and really conclude if your hypothesis is correct or not. So I support collecting data, and I support collecting the right kind of data. And we're talking about data that is fit for purpose. So don't just go out there and collect it just because you need the data. For me, as a company, For example, it was always a question, do we want to collect data about if the user is male or female, right? So just because we can collect that data, just because I can get the ID number of a farmer, does not mean that I need to save that data. So it is data that is fit for purpose. Why do I need that data at all? Does the information about a user being male or female affect in any way how they interact with my system? Or does it not matter because you're just collecting the data because you can? So that is something that I find also very critical when we're talking about data. And while we're talking about data, I also want to mention data privacy and the consent of the people that you're taking the data from. I'm sure that this is also something that is mentioned in the courses, but also when you're looking at the data dimension, when you're working with your users, look at the data that you're collecting. And if you're collecting personal data, then also have make sure that you are using this data in the right way, in the legal way, and you're only using it for the purpose that it is meant to be used.
Thanks, Kizito. So I had someone asking me that could I please send the link or search words how to design a questionnaire. So I actually pasted the link in the chat from Stanford D School, interview for empathy. And if you click on that link, you'll be able to get the one-page PDF document that I was talking about. So please use that. Okay, so the next question was coming from, I'll take the question, Felix, I think asked, no, not Felix. Oh yeah. The question is from Jacqueline, how to develop problem statement. So very briefly, I touched upon, we use something called as case methodology, but let me give a quick tangible example. So, when I meet problem solvers and they tell me they are working in the field of education, or they are working to solve the problem of poverty or homelessness, I think that means nothing to me. So I, generally when I run my class or my workshops, I ask people, how many of you think poverty is a problem? I'm not going to ask that right now. And everyone puts their hand up, and then I tell them that you are wrong. Poverty is not a problem. It's an effect of many, many underlying problems. So someone could be poor because first you have to define poverty. In America, the definition is very different than in India or in Kenya or in Mozambique or Burkina Faso or Egypt. All the places where I worked, I think poverty's economic definition is very different. I've had people in US, in New York City, having an apartment, having a job, having money to eat, tell me they're poor. So I understood that poverty means different to a lot of people. So I don't think poverty is how you define a problem. Developing a problem statement means you move away from talking about the domain or the effect of the problem, and having a problem statement talk about the cause of the problem. So if you now tell me that the problem you're trying to solve is that people living in this neighborhood in Manhattan have their income levels, weekly income levels, $100, and I'm helping them to solve, to move their income level from $100 to $200 a week, so they can afford fresh produce and better food and not rely on, junk food. So that's a very specific problem statements, and it actually reinstates the fact and the need of Kizito talking about getting the right data. So that is a combination of data and design thinking, where data will empower your problem statement further. You won't just make random statements like, I'm trying to solve the problem of education. You will be specific. I'm trying to solve the problem of quality of education for kids in standard 5th, standard 6th and 7th. And helping them improve their math and science skills so they can pursue STEM in college. That's very specific. It talks about a cause and the effect, which means that if you solve that problem, you believe that they will be interested in science, and they will actually most likely go to college to become engineers or something like that. So that problem statement, I'll always tell people, should have a cause of the problem, should also possibly have an effect, because then you can measure it, again, data. And I think that's one of the most simpler ways that I can talk about in a short time, how to create a problem statement. So thank you. That was a really good question. Let's see, what are the questions? Yeah, I think I answered all the questions on the chat, Kirangai, for now.
Thank you very much, Dhairya. And again, a hearty thank you from ourselves as a P4CDA and from our students. We have not had dropouts from this discussion ever since we started, which is rare given the hour that it is on this end of the world. And to a majority of us, there is something I would like us to also notice. The world is truly now a global village. Somebody sitting in Canada, like Shadrach, knows that you have a need. And he actually says, Kiringai, we have worked with you. Can you identify the people who you think can learn? And he doesn't even give any conditions on who I pick. And then we sit down with Felix, and courtesy of this program, Felix actually came into our organization, and we actually look at how do we target to reach these people and what do we want them to do. And given that we are talking devolution and we know the capacity gaps that exist in our country, then the solutions or the proposals that you are getting as a presentation from these three colleagues that I have introduced to you, they may create some idea in you that makes you want to go and solve a problem somewhere. If that happens and you do not know how, do not fail to get in touch with Felix or myself. I would recommend that you get in touch with Felix. Felix would always convene whoever it is that will be the right person to discuss with you. And we have people here who are actually doing very interesting things. James, are you there? James Nyakera. James, are you in the team? James is a very interesting innovator in our country. He is doing very interesting things with microcontrollers, and he has been developing solutions for rural communities, like milk dispensers, remote switches, and things that are very helpful to the community, including washing, water dispensing, hand washing stations for counties. And he is one of those guys that I do not know exactly whether he has actually pursued a course within Udemy.
He's here. He just walked
He's here.
in. Yeah.
James, are you there?
James Nyakera.
Nyakera.
I think he has a slow connection. He's in Muranga, deep in Muranga. Yes.
He comes from the same county like myself, and there we don't quite access the internet as we want. So what am I trying to say? Please pick a problem, talk to us, and let us see how we can sort it together. It is, Dhairya called it co-creation. We can, sitting with you, with the persons that you want to have the problem addressed, come up with something that we would like to have done. Of course, this is not our last Thursday. We will be having many more Thursdays. So I don't want to actually hold you longer than we have already done. And thank you very much for being present throughout. So I want to return the control back so that Felix can now finalize the discussions. Asanteni sana.
Thank you so much, Dhairya. Thank you so much for Sarah, and thank you so much for Kizito. And as we close tonight, it's my hope that all the young fellows in the group, they've understood all the training that they're getting. It's towards them coming up with a certain solution. So when they're choosing their courses, they should be very, very intentional about it. It should not be just, randomly, but they should have foreseen what kind of knowledge or understanding they need or they require to be able to deliver the solution. So thank you so much for your time. We've really extended. Usually we do only 40 minutes, but this was necessary because as Dhairya said, it's good to have the foundation right. It's good to be able to have everything right. So as you go along, it gets easier for you. So thank you for your time, and we'll keep on talking in our chat groups. And I wish everybody a nice evening for those it's night, and a wonderful day for those it's day. Siku njema.
Asanteni sana. Some people are raising their hands, but poleni sana. We will have an opportunity to discuss again. Kwaherini.
Yes, we will. Asante. Yes.